Welcome to the All Things Circular podcast, your gateway to the circular economy. Hosted by industry experts Victoria Darcy and Rich Bulger. Every episode is proof that circularity isn't just good for the planet. It's a smart business decision. Our mission is simple: to empower, to inform, and to show you how to make the circular economy work for you.
Hello, welcome to another episode of All Things Circular. I'm Rich Bulger.
And I'm Vic Darcy.
And this is a very special episode because we are being joined by one of the industry titans, legends, one of the most influential and important people in this space, Mr. Tony Sciarrotta.
Wow, I think that was overbilled, but thank you very much, Rich. I appreciate it. I just love this. Somehow it's genetic. It's in my DNA. And to make a difference, and I've enjoyed doing that and making a difference with a lot of help from people like yourself, as you know.
Well, we are coming to our audience today from the Reverse Logistics Annual Conference and Expo.
Yep.
The Reverse Logistics Association has had a big impact on my career, and as have you.
Yes.
Tony, for our audience, I talk about the RLA quite a bit, but tell us, in your words, a little bit about you and your background and how did you get here, and what is the Reverse Logistics Association?
You know, I told a story somewhere today in one of the audiences that I used to be a happy-go-lucky sales guy. I was winning awards at Sony, winning awards for sales at Philips, winning President's Awards, winning all these great awards in sales. And honestly, what happened that was unknown to me, I was pulled out of a hat, literally, because of consultants that Philips had hired to reduce returns, which were staggering at the time. They were like 12 to 15% return rates, and they were staggering. And they hired consultants who apparently went through everyone's resume and like just that guy. I'm like, I had no idea when I got called into the office. And it's like, you know what, Tony? You've been good in sales, you've been good in marketing, but we need you to go fix the returns problem. Now, the cool part is I think that made all the difference in the world. People who come from finance, from supply chain, from other parts of the industry, it's wrong. You really ultimately, this had to be a sales function. And that's what I've been doing for 8 years, is selling the story of what can we do to make a difference. So it happened by mistake. 25 years of my career were in sales, sales guy, and happy-go-lucky one. But now I'm passionate, and I'm still happy.
I like to say that I'm a reverse logistician. I'm a salesperson trapped in the body of a reverse logistician. And you're right. You absolutely have to be.
You do. You do.
I think it's really interesting because one of the myths that we very first bust on the show was the fact that there is no money in this, there's no commercial, and it's so wrong. Circularity is profitable.
So Vic, my nightmare at Philips was having to stand in front of the CFO every month and explain why the inventory value was so high for returns and why we kept losing so much money. And what I made jokes about from the stage, and it wasn't a joke, I learned I needed a finance friend as my drinking buddy. I really did. And I got one. And he was great, because one of the big mistakes that companies make, for example, especially rich in consumer electronics, they kept the value of the inventory at the original landed cost. Yeah. Here they are bringing in new products that are cheaper, and I'm being dinged for losing millions of dollars when it's priced wrong. Yeah. So there's an important myth busting right there. You have to keep the value of the inventory in line with your current goods, or you're going to sink.
Yep.
And that was an important message. And the gentleman is still a friend. He's still a drinking buddy, and he just helped me on that understanding end-to-end cost as well. Right? We harp too much on the price devaluation, but we forget about the return shipment, the extra touch points I've referred to, the transit to move it somewhere else and to sell it. And those are so many more touch points, Rich. What is it? 7 times the amount of touch points as the forward side. And that's drastic. So it's really nice to think about having a good finance person. Or, Rich, I think you had a little more finance background than I did, because I remember your Dick and Jane story with the math in it and how it worked out. It's like, God, I wish I'd thought of that 10 years ago.
When I got into the space, I was an operations and marketing director. So I started Verizon's training program when I was trying to figure out how to overcome a need to reduce our discounting, and we ended a retention discount. So when you talk about a finance guru,
Yes.
if you ever see me on a webcast, on a podcast, and I've done some of our podcasts live, behind me over my left shoulder, there's a picture of a gentleman also wearing a tuxedo, looking all dapper.
Yeah, there is.
Because he was holding a beer behind his back, and it was at an award show. But he was my associate director of finance. I used to call him Mr. No because he kept on telling me no so much. I was risk, being the marketing guy.
Yep.
He was risk management, being the finance person.
Yes.
And there's a natural conflict. But
Yes,
to
there
that
is.
point, we had constructive dissent. When we had those conversations, they were never confrontational. He made me go through and create business cases to justify what I wanted to do, and being able to go through and communicate what I expected and the outcome in numbers, and then having the sales courage to be on quota and saying, all right, if there's a number, I'm going to hit the number,
Right.
and following through. You need to be able to speak finances.
You do.
The reason why there's a whole chapter in Going Circular around
Absolutely.
finance.
You addressed it. You were careful to point that out as important. I didn't understand most of the chapter, Rich. Sorry. I read through it. It's like a little above my head. But again, you're right. Finance is integral to the circular economy approach and everything in it. So,
No, it is.
yes,
So this is my first RLA. So first of all, thank you for having me.
we're proud to have you here, Vic.
Thank you. So can you tell me, how did all this come about? How did this start? How do you structure something? Because this is a big show with some absolutely phenomenal speakers.
Well, first, I can't get credit for creating the association. It started about 21 years ago by another gentleman who really found the sweet spot. It didn't exist. And I know because this is around the year 2000, I'm looking for people to teach me something about returns to reduce them. And it didn't really exist, except there was an ease of use roundtable. There was this Genco organization that used to have events. And I caught some of them and realized there is no association. Then it came about in 2004, recognized it, and it really did well for a few years. Quite a few years, actually, many exhibitors, because everyone had a thirst for it. They were looking for information, they were looking for solutions. So it brought them together. And then there was a bit of a decline after the recession of 08, 09. The global recession affected returns actually for a bit. And so the event started to slip. And let's just say in 2016, when I took over, I started to tell the story from the stage of Tom Marr, Jennifer Foxworthy from HP, and Tom Marr from Dell, and all these others saying, we need our own stronger association. I took over in 2016, and I was fortunate to have a lot of good friends in this industry, a lot of them. I'd sat on the board for about 10 years, but I have a knack for finding good people. If I hear them speak once, I know if they're going to be right for us.
Excellent.
And so the keynote speakers have always been my handpicks. The content, though, was always important. And I've only had maybe 2 incidents over the 8 years I've done it where somebody got on stage and did a little bit too much marketing.
Okay.
That's not allowed.
No.
It's high content. That's what people are here for.
Education.
The networking, if they want to do their marketing spiel, they do it in the booth.
Yeah.
They don't do it on our stage. And I'm proud of maintaining that high content. Finding great speakers is about connections. It really is. All around the world, you hear about people and you hear from people and you just write to them and you connect to them on LinkedIn. And then it gets out of control, Vic, because now I've got like 12,000 names on LinkedIn and I just don't remember them all anymore.
You're
And
about to have 12,001.
yeah. But that's how you do it. You look for the best.
Yeah.
And you try to listen to the best. And thank goodness for social media and YouTube and all the things. You can hear almost anyone if they've ever spoken anywhere. So that's how. And I want to, again, acknowledge this executive council, my board. Their voices are in my head, but their voices are also talking to other people. Nordstrom today, the keynote,
Yep.
was because of Jason McIver at Dell. Connections.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening. Then you meet some of these people, you hear them, and you say, would you please consider doing this? Because we were a little show. We we were like nothing. And Vic, not only are you asking them to come and show up and give some good words of advice, you ask them to pay their expenses. Please, we're poor.
Yeah.
We're budget conscious here. And I'm so grateful to all of them over the years that helped turn us into something relevant, important, and making a difference.
It does seem like it's a collective driving forward.
That's a good way to describe it, Vic. I agree with that statement. It is a collective. And it's interesting because, we talked about the numbers, 890 billion being touched. No matter how much you break it down, there's a lot of product moving. And there's no company in this industry that you would recognize as more than a few $1 billion. So who's handling the 300, 400, 500 billion worth of things? It's the collective. Some people move it. Some people touch it. Some people fix it. Some people resell it. Some people recycle it. It is a collective. You're starting to see more end-to-end companies, end-to-end solutions starting to happen. And that's important because it really needs to be end-to-end somehow or some way. But a collective, I love that term. I'm going to use that.
Excellent.
I'm going to use that one, Vic.
So you mentioned the return problem. In 2019, I think returns were somewhere in the neighborhood of $360 billion. Return rates were 8%.
Yep.
Fast forward to the numbers that were shared at the conference this year, $890 billion with a return rate north of 18%.
Yep.
So when returns were considered a necessary evil, no one knew what a reverse logistics facility looked like. Just 7 guys in a
Right.
forklift, and put a note in there and they'll figure it out, and shame on them if they don't. But when people changed the way that they bought, when COVID happened from brick and mortar to online, there was a raising of the pressure that was put on return rates. 8%, it's almost 300% more the cost, the negative contra revenue associated with unwanted returns in just 5 years. It's been really interesting that, and the big news last year was the National Retail Federation had partnered with and acquired the Reverse Logistics Association because they were trying to address those challenges. Can you talk a little bit about your conversations with NRF, why they decided to come in? And now it's been a year. What's everyone seeing?
Rich, the story is luck to some degree. And I was starting to consider how long could I continue doing this myself, running it. The resources that we needed to do education, to do surveys, benchmarking, things like that, we didn't have enough. And so I was starting to listen to some organizations that approached me. And honestly, you talk about pure chance. Scott Case and I, Scott Case, Vice President of Sustainability at the NRF, were in Cincinnati in an incredibly boring forum on supply chain fulfillment something. So we wound up having dinner together. And you discover a passionate soul. And you say, oh my God, we're so on the same page. And unbeknownst to me, I told him the story of who I was listening to, who was courting me, and who we were dating with and things. And unbeknownst to me, he went back to NRF and convinced them that the retailers, one of their top concerns these days is, what are we doing about returns? Because you're right, 900 billion, even 2 years ago, it was over 800 billion then. So we had him as our advocate inside NRF saying this is a good fit because of our content, because of the reputation. We're the global voice. There is no other. And we're really proud of that. And we consider it a major responsibility. And when I met Stephanie Martz, Steph, as I get to call her, Steph, again, a mutual caring and passion. And it just felt like a good fit. So pure chance, being in Cincinnati of all places, to have a nice dinner, it turns into a conversation about what's going on, where are you going, and then coming back from the NRF. I visited Washington, D.C. a month later, sat down with Steph, and it just felt right. What they do is also important for the retail community. And they recognize, I mean, they focus on legislative efforts, of course, but they also focus on things like cybersecurity. They focus on loss prevention, retail crime. They focus on everything that helps the retailers. And they wanted to add reverse logistics and returns management to it. It's a long-winded story. I apologize, but it's so important, and it's just so fortunate. I can say I'm blessed. I can say I'm lucky. I can say I'm fortunate. All those things apply because pure chance, because I had not known Scott before that.
Wow. And the impact it seems to have had by joining forces seems to have been incredible.
Well, here we are a year later. We've got education.
Yeah.
We'll show the benchmarking survey tomorrow. By the way, the metrics are in there, Rich, when we talk about in-store returns rate versus e-commerce return rates. It's in the presentation tomorrow and a couple of slides. And then there's a bigger report that the NRF commissioned to do this. So there's the resources, right? That's the difference. And they also can help us find good speakers, obviously, from the retail side. Now, I take credit for the Nordstrom people with Jason, but they also have brought great speakers from the retail side community. I think about some of the names from Best Buy and from the others. So it's really good. I call it a marriage.
Yep.
They call it an adoption. It's probably a little more appropriate. They're just a little bit bigger than we are, but I've been adopted into a good family. And that's what it's about. And you called it a collective earlier. That's what we're doing. And now we've created this association collective. And by the way, you also see the effect of collective associations when you see Michelle James on stage, CTIA. She's in Washington, D.C. Yesterday, we had the other big association, Consumer Technology Association, the CES people, Brian Comiskey from there. I mean, it is not just a collective about what we're doing. It's a collective about making a difference for retailers, manufacturers.
It's an ecosystem.
Because it's a strong ecosystem.
It is because, as we're sitting here in front of the All Things Circular,
yeah.
Logo, everything, it takes a multitude of people and multitude of intent.
Yes.
From different parts of the circular economy to make this thing work.
Absolutely. And it is about the manufacturers and the retailers. They make the stuff, they sell the stuff, they get stuff back.
Yeah.
They have to deal with it somehow. And then the rest of the collective, as you said, so many companies with so many solutions, and most of them are very good solutions, and they're combining their efforts. So it's great. It's obviously a passion. It's a love. I love seeing us be able to make a difference. And I'm proud of the finance connection that I learned, that my $50 million in returns reductions was worth more to the company than $50 million in sales.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Find the right finance people who can help you show that to your company, and you become a hero.
Now, for those of you in the audience, you may notice that Tony is dressed a little bit differently than anyone that's been on our podcast before. And for those who don't know Tony, he's got one of the best hearts and souls and has a passion for the space, unlike anyone that you will ever meet. And what I've learned about Tony is one of his love languages is giving to others.
Yes.
And every year he dresses in a tuxedo to go through and give awards out to those people in the community that are making a difference. And you were kind enough to give me an award tonight around education, but to be honest, you deserve that award, because the Going Circular book, the master classes, because we're going to talk about that in a minute, would not have happened if it wasn't for your encouragement, your drive, and your because you were at this for years trying to make education important.
Yes.
This all happened because of you.
Well, I appreciate those words, the kind words, but Rich, it is a collective, and it's a chance meeting as well, because you were on the board, but then I learned you were doing your master's work at American Public University, the only place you could. You were connected to our hero, Oliver Hedgepath, and some of the other academics. And you started to tell me about this thesis. And you had, Rich, a different direction in mind. You were not going to call it Going Circular. I think you were trying to do Going Backwards 2 or something like that. And I'm like, no, Rich, you got to do this. Do it, Going Circular. And so I know I talked you into that. I helped talk you into it. wonderful wife Naomi probably helped do that too. But it just was perfect, going circular. And when you brought that out, it was worth reading and reading and reading everything you'd written. And then you tasked me with writing a foreword for that book. But it's important.
No good deed goes unpunished.
Well,
I had to
that's true,
pass
too.
a little bit of the pain back to you.
So yes, education is critical. We don't offer it. As you know, Rich, in Europe, there are more schools engaged in reverse logistics education, circularity, as Vic, you probably know as well out there. Southampton comes to mind. Sheffield comes to mind. We've had speakers from there. And I love the academics there. I just wish we had more focused on it here. But it doesn't matter. We have the book, right? And I mentioned the fact that Going Backwards stood out there for 20 years as the lone wolf and with good information. And now we have another standard, a classic, as it were. And it'll carry the story for a long time. Although I hear a rumor that you got that in the back of the mind for what? Going Circular too?
Yeah, oh yeah.
We'll see how that goes.
It's gonna be the leader's guide, the CEOs, what they need to know, because I view Going Circular as a cookbook, like the details of what you need to put in. But the sales leaders don't want to know how to bake the cookie; they just want to know what's on the menu. So the next one's going to be half the size and geared towards giving the book towards leaders to help them understand how to manage.
A little bit of finance in there too.
A little bit of finance.
A little bit.
You
of
got
finance.
to throw numbers at the C-suite.
But
I think it's a how-to, right? Yeah.
Vic, as we think about it, and I love your term, the collective. It's a little scary too. It sounds a little sci-fi, a little alien predator. But the collective concept of we all have so many great ideas. You think about some of the great ones, and I sat down with Sender Seamus today from Return Pro. He opens up the camera and he's got this idea of how do we tell fake returns from real returns. There's a lot of fake returns going on. That's the nightmare of the future. Yeah. Those factories somewhere overseas, I'll leave countries out of it, but let's just say, earbuds that are $300 when they're fraudulent, computers with fake motherboards in.
Yep.
I mean, it's a nightmare. And we have to find solutions. And some of us, Rich, you're included, we stay up at night and we think about these things. And we're like, what can we do about this? And come up with these ideas. And that's the collective. It's a little scary, but as long as we don't call ourselves Borg, okay? We'd be the collective.
Yeah, I like it. I've coined a new phrase for you.
You have. I'm going to use it a lot.
Glad we can give back. I remember being on the board, and one of the common themes that we got in feedback post the annual conference and expo was a desire to go through and have an intentional training course.
Yes.
So with Going Circular turning into an 8-hour, a 2-day, a 3-day masterclass, you had this concept of in essentials, a 3-hour class.
Yes.
And then there was headwind. It was something that wasn't done before.
Right.
So there had to be some buy-in. So can you talk to us a little bit about why you wanted to have a reverse logistics masterclass for members to come and participate in?
Two things, Rich. Number one, we're an association, and this is what associations do. Number two, the RLA community, the members, in every survey we did, and every time we put them on stage, what do you want from your association? Education. It was always top of mind. It was always brought up. We want to reduce returns, but everyone's smart enough to know you need the education to do that. And so it was important. And you're right. If we'd had a little more time behind us on putting this together, we'd have needed a much bigger room, and we will do this more. And I also wrestle with the challenge of trying to work it into the agenda, right? Because people are coming here to network. They're coming here to shop for solutions. They're coming here to hear good speakers. How do you throw a class in and fit it into the schedule? And then I look at organizations, again, another association, CSCMP, supply chain, and their approach is to offer 17 education sessions at the same time. I was like, you can't do that. No. So we really revamped the format this year. We gave everyone more networking time, and it gave us a window to add that. Now, judging by the success of that 3-hour, we're going to come back and do this again. We could do it at our leadership event in Dallas. We can do it in Amsterdam. We could do it next year here. We can consider it a day before and do the full 8 hours. we can do a lot of different things now that we never got a chance to do. And that's probably the proudest moment of my career with running the RLA, is having you produce a class, having NRF produce a class. I know that somewhere Oliver Hedgepath is smiling at us and being really happy, right? So it's there. We've got it. And now that we've got it, and by the way, we kind of ran out of room in your classroom, right? And
that was a good problem to have.
It was a good problem to have, but we will plan better. We didn't realize how many people showing up the day of would look at that and say, this is important. I want to do this. So,
or an 8 a.m. training in Vegas.
Right. In Vegas, exactly.
Yeah, we had 44 that we were expecting, and I think we started turning people. We were turning people away.
We had to turn people away at 75 because we couldn't fit any more chairs in the room.
But it was the multidiscipline as well that was in the room. It was really interesting to look at the diversity and the backgrounds of people and the reasons why they were there. Education being the primary function, but everybody took something different from it.
Absolutely. And Vic, what else I heard, and this is important for next year and the next ones, is some people felt they knew some of what was being presented. There was always something new, Rich, but some people felt like, well, I know some of this. What else can I learn? Yeah. So now we have to think about levels, right? Yeah. We have to think about, this is a 100 level option. Let's go to a 200 level option. Maybe we offer both next year, in different rooms. Because you did have a good, staff with you, with Peter Evans, of course, PhD, and Deborah Dull with her experience in supply chain. We can do this with multiples.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was wonderful. I've been around Rich for quite some time, and I still learned. And it's curiosity is key to success and things like this for me.
Vic, we're going to find a way to do this in Amsterdam, and you're going to have to be with us.
Oh, I'd love to.
Absolutely. So we're gonna make that happen.
All right.
Well,
one of the things that we like to do on All Things Circular is bust a myth, and I know you've been at this going hard for a couple of days now, and it's later in the evening. But before we close it out, what is one myth that you keep on hearing that you would like to bust?
So the nightmare when I was at Philips is being in a room with the CFO, other C-suite people, the engineers, and the finance people. And the engineers would present their evidence saying, Tony, 90% of what we take back, there's no technical failure, no technical fault. And you shouldn't let the retailers take this stuff back. I'm like, what? You want me to go to one of our big box retailers and tell them we're not taking this stuff back if it's not defective? Something went wrong. But that's the holy grail of our industry. We are moving so many boxes. And think about these millions of units. There's nothing wrong with them. Millions of units. It's using up fuel. It's polluting the air. It's creating waste. And there's nothing wrong with this stuff. That is the holy grail.
Yep.
And I am so proud that at Philips, I figure out how to fix the holy grail to some degree, because it's not about stopping the return. It's about making the product better so that the experience that you and I and Vic, when you buy something and you open it up, it exceeds your expectations.
Yeah.
And that's the nightmare of online shopping. And that's why return rates in store, Rich and Vic, they're still pretty low.
Yeah.
They're still pretty low. We'll show it tomorrow. But it's the e-commerce rates that have exploded because we are a culture of entitlement here. And unfortunately, we've exported that to the rest of the world. Right? I have a right to return anything I want anytime for free. Yes, there's some modifications to that, Zara and H&M. They're starting to charge, but it's pennies.
Yeah,
it's pennies, right? It's pennies on the dollar. People can still buy 7 sets of clothing, buy them all, and return them for way less than they would have paid for new. Yeah. So there's that nightmare going on. But it's this holy grail, and I'm telling everyone now, the holy grail relates to the customer experience. I can't say this enough, and I'm so proud of the research we've done, Rich, over the years, having people honestly say to us in an interview by students, we offer them a gift card at Starbucks if you answer a few questions. Most of the time, Rich, they knew it wasn't effective. They took it back because they said it did not meet their expectations. And we're the ones as manufacturers and retailers setting those expectations.
That's right.
So make the expectations right and learn to exceed them so that when the package arrives at your door, and I'll give you a small, silly example. I bought some record covers. I have a nice, great vinyl record collection. So I bought some.
You bought
vinyl
them recently?
CDs. Yeah, I'm old, right? We got that. I've had them a long time. Got these nice vinyl. And you know what they packed inside the box? It was a 45 RPM record, Patsy Cline. It's like that was in the box. And you know what? I went online and I bragged about it. It was like, how cool is this? That is exceeding someone's expectations.
Yes.
Put something in the box to surprise them. And that's where, how would I say no? How would I send something like that back? Or the other simple example, Rich, open up the box, red stop sign. Don't take this back to the store. What a bad message. At Philips, we changed it. Open up the box, gold star. Congratulations on your great purchase. And the other part of that, here's the quick, easy guide to put this in place, make it work, turn it on, everything else, instead of 12 languages in a small instruction book with the smallest print, with the lousiest pictures.
Yeah.
I'm still mad at Philips because the electronics division got it, but I bought recently a Philips espresso machine, and the instruction books are 12 languages, small print, pictures are hard to read. Yeah. I'm going back after that division. But that's what it's about. How do you exceed someone's expectations? Yeah. How do you make them excited when they open the box? Especially e-commerce, that they don't want to take it back or send it back.
I love that. But for me is more than returns. That's about brand loyalty. You're going to go back and you're going to buy more.
Yes. But how do you quantify that, Vic? That's you can. Yeah. And actually one of our executive council board members mentioned that idea. Just do a test. Do a test and see what happens if you do change things up a little bit on the way you do it, and do the test. It was Nikos, actually, our colleague Nikos. Do a test, see what happens. And that's the difference. You can exceed customers' expectations, build brand loyalty, and that's what he proved in the test. You can easily build brand loyalty. And it's just hard to stand in front of a CFO and explain that. Yes, like you just really need that good friend.
Experience it.
Until they experience it.
Well, Tony, I know that you are a popular person to talk to at the show, and you've been very gracious with the time that you've given us.
I feel like I've gone long-winded, but you'll use what you can. And
it's wonderful.
I'm sorry. There is one other. You're talking about the myth of returns and the nightmares. We had another program. I'll remember the acronym while I'm telling you about it. At Philips,
we use acronyms in reverse logistics. That's new.
I convinced Philips, after listening to the ease of use roundtable people, which included, by the way, human factor engineers who really understand the idea of what to do with a product because people are going to touch it. We forced senior management at Philips, one of them, to take a brand new product home before we released it to the market. We not only did that and made him take it home and report at the monthly MIT meetings or whatever kind of meetings we had for the whole team, 100, 200 people, and talk about it. How great is this product? I took it home. I loved it. It was easy to use. And then we'd raffle it off. Everyone's paying attention to that. That's how you change the culture of the people at the company so that they think about when they sell this product, is it for the, 1 out of a million geek who's going to buy it? Or do you want everyone to have a good experience with it? And that was game changer. I don't remember the acronym. It was a good one. But
we'll find it and we'll talk about it because there's going to be another show.
Okay. We'll do more shows. We'll have more ideas. And but thank you for letting me go long on this too.
Oh, you're welcome. And I think, anybody that's not been to this show, come to Amsterdam.
Absolutely. Amsterdam, Dallas in September. Back here next March. Same facility with big rooms, lots of space. Please come join us and make a difference.
Yeah, www.rla.org, and Tony's love language is LinkedIn, so find him there.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you very much for tuning in to another episode of All Things Circular. Have a great day.
Thanks for tuning in. Please head over to allthingscircular.com to learn more.